Welcome back to the BHAW Army Wrestling Radio Show. I'm your host, Jordan Tom, followed with Brian Rowan. And today we got guest, 2014 graduate. He was a walk-on to the wrestling team. He's said to be the most beautiful man of Army wrestling history, and he's a total military stud. We got on Alex Dahl. Live on site.
Yeah. Alex is a local Fort Bragg guy. We'll get into that a bit too, but it felt weird having Alex like on the show and being like 2 miles down the street. So
that would have made no sense.
Super convenient.
Just hope the internet doesn't go down here.
Yeah, we're both out.
Yeah.
Well,
let's we can dive right into this. Tell us a little bit about getting into West Point, your story. What made you go to West Point. All that good stuff in the beginning.
All the juicy deeds. So I first want to start off and say Bobby Doyle has the title of the most beautiful Army wrestler. There's no arguing that.
Wow.
All right. I went to West Point for probably every other reason. Every reason anyone else went. Dad was in the military, Air Force, flew planes, flew jets for them, got out. But he started me on the military idea when I was a young kid. Watched Rambo and Predator one too many times as a young kid. Best movie ever made, by the way, Predator. And he wanted to do something along those lines. I originally wanted to be a Navy SEAL, though, because I'm from South Florida, love the water. Every time I was in the pool growing up as a kid, it was, Dad, let me see how long I can hold my breath. Let me see how many laps I can do underwater. So wanted to be a SEAL. Eventually, at some point in time, kind of evolved into that. Wrestling in high school, realized I wanted to wrestle in college. Figured the best place to go, you add 1 and 1 is the Naval Academy, right? So I applied there, went to their summer seminar. My dad made me apply to West Point, though it's almost like he knew what he was doing because I didn't get accepted to the Naval Academy and got accepted to West Point. So it all worked out with that whole process of getting on. And then I knew that I wanted to wrestle. I didn't get recruited, but I was naive as heck in high school, and I had no idea recruitment was even a thing. No one reached out to me. I took third my senior year, but by that point, from Florida, so nothing special, but by that point, it was a little too late to get any type of recruitment. I did reach out to, I think it was Coach Vega at the time. And he said,
Raphael.
Yeah, Rafael Vega, man. Smell like booze every day. No, I reached out to him, sent him a little highlight video I pieced together. He said, hey, man, it's good stuff, but we can't recruit you. I see you got accepted, so just come here and try to walk on. And I figured they probably wouldn't want to waste the recruitment spot anyways on someone who's already accepted. But showed up, and, I didn't know recruitment was a thing. I heard about the wrestling practice. I was like, hey, I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to wrestle here, so I'm going to go to the practice. Showed up, and this was like a eye-opening moment. I showed up to the first practice, and I was in the old PT uniform that they had at West Point. So the big parachute pants that are goofy as heck, and you're flopping around in, and then the gray PT shirt with your name right on your chest. So I walk into practice wearing that, and everyone else is in like cool Army wrestling gear. It's like, okay, something's amiss right here, like even the freshmen, like the guys that were in my class, I didn't know anybody, but I knew they were freshmen. So I knew something was a little off right there, that there was a whole recruitment piece that must have happened that they got and I didn't, but I still wanted to be on the team. So I walked in the door that first practice. Coach Heskett, I remember him pulling us together and gave us a speech. Off the bat, it was his first year too, so he was kind of introducing himself, setting expectations, what he wanted for the whole year, and ended the speech with explaining that we needed to fill out packets for the NCAA, administrative stuff for us. And like, all right, I can go get my packet. And there was one classmate, not classmate of mine, upperclassman of mine. I'm not going to mention his name for the sake of the podcast. I'll tell you guys after. He was holding a stack of papers and was handing them out to the whole team. And I walked up to him, was like, hey, man, I need a stack of paper. He looks at what I'm wearing. He's like, this is scrub. He's not part of the team. Get the heck out of here. You don't need one of these. Like, get out of here is what he told me. I was like, okay, that's how it's going to be. But, I was walking on at the time. My walk-on bud became Kenny Skillman, who's one of, like, the nicest, Genuinely good dudes. Yeah, baby. And just a hard worker, man. And we became buds, dude. We wrestled together every day, walking on, and we were the partners. We started off with each other, finished with each other, wrestling, and we weren't really good. Neither of us were, but we beat the crap out of each other, and I think the coaches at least appreciated that. I remember definitely taking turns slugging each other in the head versus actually working collar ties and setups.
That was a story earlier on the podcast episode, if I believe so.
Yep.
Yeah, that was with Nate Dahl. I think I liked slugging in the room. I wasn't a good wrestler, but I liked slugging. But then Kenny Skillman and I, we slugged it out. And our thing before every practice, because there was a few other guys who were trying to walk on, and every now and then coach would pull them off into the room during practice, and you wouldn't see them the next day. So Kenny Skillman and I said, if we don't get pulled into the wrestling room, the coach's head office, we're good. And one day, coach sat us all down, and he said, look to your left, look to your right. Naturally, Kenny Skillman sitting right next to me. We're looking at each other. He goes, this is the wrestling team. This is going to be what we work with here. So we made it at that point. And pretty cool. It was a relief, I kind of went into it all having no clue what I was about to enter or the position I was in. But having walked on was the best thing, that ever happened to me. It wasn't easy, especially being a subpar wrestler on the team. But
when was that? Was that like right after Beast, or like right before season, or after preseason, or like timeline wise? Like when did you guys have walk-ons? Like, I guess maybe if there's any listeners out there who are thinking about coming to West Point or stumble upon the podcast, or just old grads who maybe the process was different. Like, what was the walk-on process timeline wise for you coming on?
So my timeline just synced right up with the wrestling team's timeline. I don't think there was a walk-on the year before. Jordan, if you can speak to if you knew any walk-ons before Kenny and I don't think it was a thing. It wasn't
hard. No, I mean Chandler walked on at the same time as you, yeah.
He walked on the year after. He was one year
after you. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was. There might have been some guys, but I think. Let's be honest. The standard of excellence raised when Coach Heskett came. So there was like, hey, cool. Like, yeah, you guys are gonna raise the team GPA average, but like you also need to be tough and like actually work hard and be good at wrestling. So
wrestle.
I think before that there was like a really big opportunity. Hey, if you just want to be a part of something, you're more than welcome to join. And as long as you stay out of trouble, you're more than welcome to keep coming around. I think that was definitely the first year. It was like, all right, welcome to running the ski slope. If you don't make it, then don't show up tomorrow.
You're out.
Yeah.
4 days. Those 4 days of my life that I spent on that ski slope will never be forgotten.
Nope.
Well, yeah, to answer the question, it was never like explicitly stated. We kind of just showed up.
Yep.
The first day. We heard wrestling team was going to get together, and we just showed up, and we didn't leave. We weren't going to leave or stop coming until coach told us to stop. But yeah, I think there were a few other guys that tried walking on that year.
Wasn't Curtis Gardner that year too?
No, he came our sophomore year. Sophomore year.
Yeah, years
he's a homie too. He's doing good. Big shout out to Kurt. Love that guy. He's got skinny little legs though.
I tell you what. So the walk-on dudes, like at first, it kind of pissed me off because they were like so jolly and happy, and they were like working so hard that they were making me feel terrible about myself. And I'm like, these are working so hard, like they're making me look bad. And they were like happy while they were doing it, like they weren't cutting weight and they were just all jovial. And I'm pissing me off. But at the same time, like mad respect. Some of those dudes never even got the opportunity to strap a singlet on and wrestle like a match. And I still don't to this day possess like the mental fortitude to go through that for 4 years and not do that by any means. So big shout out to anybody that went through that. That's some serious work. So
just happy to have had the opportunity, man. Being in the Arm Wrestling Brotherhood is the best thing that's happened to me.
I feel like you would have done that, Jordan, if you were wrestling at 149.
Maybe eating Crispita.
You would have been a jollier fellow at 149 than 133.
Yeah, you were cutting like 20 pounds a week, weren't you?
Yeah, that's neither here nor there.
Uh-huh.
Did you know any of the guys when you went through Beast, or like how did you even find out about it? You remember?
So I was in a different company from all the wrestlers. 'Cause again, back to like the whole, I wasn't recruited. So all the wrestlers I learned later were all in the same Beast company.
Yep.
I was in a different one. And I remember it was one day where they just said there was no training and they got everyone in the formation. They said, all right, we're going to have a break for all the teams. You can go check out the teams. And that's when I stumbled into the wrestling room. I'll never forget that day too, because I thought I was hot shit coming out of Florida. Third, I'm going to be all, great wrestler in college. I'm going to kick some ass. Walk into the room and I'm looking around, obviously sizing everyone up. I didn't know anybody because I didn't come on like a recruiting trip or anything. And we started drilling. So everyone pair off, start drilling, and everyone had paired off. And then what ended up being Alex Smith was left without a butt. And for those that don't know Alex Smith, man, he's the single most like athletic and raw talented wrestler I have ever wrestled in my life. He became one of my best friends, no longer with us, unfortunately, but he was the only one there. And I looked at him at the time, he was about $150 maybe. I wrestled $152, was probably 165 at the time. And I look at him, he's tall, he's got like 2 inches on me, but super skinny. If he's weighing 150, I'm like, this guy's a twig, I'm gonna break him. Dude, first shot he took, we were drilling at like 50%, and the first high crotch he took on me, it felt unlike anything I had ever felt, wrestling wise. And I knew that this dude was just way out of my league immediately. And that was also an eye-opening moment, that if I wanted to be on this team, I'm going to need to, like you said, the walk-ons are giving it all they had. And that's part of the reason, because I knew that I was out of my league here if I didn't stay on top of what I needed to stay on top. If I wasn't given all I had to cover as much distance, that those guys had on me. But it was right off the bat. If we had a live match at that moment, Alex would have just mopped the entire mat with my face.
He was an absolute beast.
What's that?
He said he was an absolute beast.
He was, man. He was good.
So a little side note on this. So I've had like a dozen people reach out to me like on the side, like in the DMs on Instagram for the most part, being like, dude, you need to get Alex Dahl on here. Like literally like a dozen people. And normally, sometimes it's like you get, 1 or 2 people here, like, oh, we've got this, or like, oh, this guy was really good at wrestling, like, the obvious, names from, Army wrestling history, like, but like it was consistent, like of guys from probably 2011 to even current cadets were like, even the current cadets were like, I heard about this guy, Alex Dahl. Can you get him on there? What would you attribute that to?
So I'd attribute that to false stories perpetuated by Nate Dahl and Samson Imanode. All right, they've created this false persona of me. It's got to be a mix. If I think about it, like, man, my wrestling career wasn't anything special. I don't even know my record because it's not worth looking up. I never started, came close. Unfortunately, lost to Chandler Smith, the one and the only, my senior year wrestle off. But I think. I was on the team all 4 years. I brawled in the wrestling room. We pretty much fought, starting off with Matt Pennings, my best friend, him and Charlie. We would just punch each other in the head. We would just take turns punching each other. That's how we wrestled. And like when we would go live and have takedowns, he would take me down, I would take him down. It wouldn't get each other mad. But what would fire me up, nothing's ever fired me up more in my life, is when I'm wrestling Matt and we get close to the wall and he shoves me into the wall, turns around and walks away back to the mat, puffing his arms out like he just got a win on me. That nothing's ever fired me up more than that. So I think just brawled, man. We got a Nate Dow brawl, Tyler McLeese brawl. Those are all guys. We just punch each other and beat each other up in the wrestling room. And I think Samson, is in on that at all. I think that kind of started it all. I don't know. We just beat the crap out of each other, and I had fun doing that. It's not a good wrestler, though. And then I've had success doing some stuff in the Army, and all attributed to, Army wrestling, what that has taught me and what I've learned from it. I think, I don't know. I don't know why they've recommended me, but if there's a reason, it could be stories created
shenanigans
that from Yeah, Samson and Todd and Nate, and then we also partied pretty hard when after the wrestling seasons and after we graduated too. And I think I had some good times with some of those guys that that I won't forget.
So one of the things that's interesting, so when you were at West Point, you were one of the first cadets from the wrestling team to go to dive school. Talk through how that opportunity came about, because I know when I was there, that was primarily just the swim team that was sending people, because that was pretty much a guaranteed pass.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? Maybe what was the small train up like and the actual experience?
Yeah, the swim team, even when I went, they still kind of owned it. A bunch of noodles, in my opinion. Like I said, I grew up, all I wanted to do was be in the water. That's what I loved. That was my thing. My dreams were like crushed when I couldn't get to Naval Academy, but came to West Point. Beast happened, and they had this one day, it was a round robin where they're showing all the things you can do in the Army. You got the engineer station, the infantry station, armor station, and boom, SF station. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. And then behind it was the combat dive station. And that's when my eyes were just, I was like a little kid, like this is awesome. I still have the opportunity to do what I want, but it didn't take me until the beginning of my junior year when I sat down. I remember it was a dinner with Matt Pennings, and I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to dive school this year. It's time. I need to do this. This is what I've always wanted to do. And they hold the tryout in October at the time. Went to the tryout, got selected, don't know how, managed to squeeze through some cracks, and then started the train up January second semester of that junior year. And the train up lasted all the way until May. And that was a rough semester. It was, 3 days a week at 5 a.m. I'm in the water just getting crushed. I had just had surgery on my wrist because I had broken bones. So I have a brace on while I'm trying to do equipment recovery with 1.5 hands as a, it was miserable. It was very rough, especially with some of the clump treads, weight belt swims we were doing. And then, we had lifts every other day in the afternoon and then practices. I wasn't wrestling, but working out. So it was an exhausting semester. My grades were, I was riding normal 3.0 throughout, and then boom, that semester hit was 2.7, boom, back up after. So
hey, 2.7 is still pretty dang good on my standards.
I was gonna say
yeah.
That was top of the that was top semester right there, 2.7.
It took a hit. Went down. Yeah, went to dive school. We were prepared for it, man. We sent, I want to say 8 guys. We sent 8, graduated 7. The one dude who didn't had an ear infection. So the tramp we had was legit. It was, but it was hard. The guys that ran it were the guys who went to dive school the year before. There was an NCO in charge, but man, he was administratively in charge. So
what's the statistic on wrestlers going after you now?
We've sent, so I don't know the sent versus succeed or how many have attempted.
Yeah.
But every year except 2015 has had at least one Army wrestler graduate dive school since my year 2014, which is awesome. It pumps me up, man.
That's sweet.
There's no one after having gone, and like I said, the swimmers are great, super good in the water. They can swim fast. It's not combat swim school though; it's combat dive. And there's a whole different aspect to it when you're just getting crushed on the ground, crushed in the water, crushed in the classroom, crushed in the ocean, sleep, repeat. It's the mentality that is bred in that Army wrestling room of just grind and grind and grind. And every time you grind, it's 100% every time. There's no pacing yourself. It's everything you got. And that's the mentality that you learn from the room, that I learned from the room, and that all Army wrestlers have, And I went to the school, and it was the best training I've ever had, best training I might ever do, personally for me, because that's all I've ever wanted to do in the Army. And I came back, and I pulled aside Nate Dahl, Tony Rizzolini. I explained to them what it's all about, man, and I told them how I felt about it, and that's where people belong. Army wrestlers belong doing that stuff. Army wrestlers need to take a hold of this and start running this, because the mentality is where we belong. It needs people like us, to be going with our mentality, and it was awesome, dude. And then you get, I know Nate Dow was next, Tony Rizzolini, stud. You got David Russell, Ethan Tersini, Matt Kelly. Those are all the guys that have gone since, and it's just cool. It makes me happy, man. It was a few years that I
You guys
had.
got like your own little inner club going now.
There is, dude. We call it the Army Wrestling.
Didn't you commission one of those guys?
I did. David Russell.
David
man.
Russell, right? Yeah.
Yep, David Russell. He's a homie. That dude's off to big things too. He's a stud, super stud.
Super
But yeah,
cool.
it's our own little bubble that we have that we keep in contact with and keep going, which is pretty cool. It's motivating. Those guys motivate me, man. I love that they kept going.
I'm getting pumped up just now. I'm about to go swimming, I think.
Speaking of swimming, John Belanger, man, that's a guy too. He was supposed to be my buddy. He was in my class. He was supposed to be my dive buddy. Had surgery, couldn't go. But now he's a Navy SEAL, graduated cross commission, and that dude's an absolute stud. Should be interviewed 100%. He has an awesome story. He's doing great stuff.
Yeah, we need to get him on.
Yeah, definitely get him on.
Speaking of water type stuff.
So transitioning, so you graduate West Point. Go to Hawaii, you start there, then you go to the Ranger Regiment, then you go to the Q course. It's not too often that you see somebody go, from Hawaii to Ranger Regiment because you have a certain timeline. But going from Ranger Regiment to SF, I feel like the community is kind of there's some animosity between going from one to the other, and a lot of lieutenants or maybe self-starters out of West Point think I have to go one or the other. Talk to that process a little bit and, what it was like for you and how you set yourself up to pretty much do everything in the Army possible to this point in your career.
Yeah. I've never been a man of moderation, so I've always been extreme. So if I like something, I'm going to do all of it, and I like doing the Army stuff.
I like it a lot.
So I like it a lot. Man, what I want to say is whatever you've heard, whatever anyone has heard, it's just wrong. Like you can do whatever you want in the Army if you take control and act on it. Like for example, to get Hawaii or Italy, you got to be pretty high in class. I'm a little more of a strong ranger than a smart ranger, so I got Savannah Fort Stewart off the bat. Went to Ranger School after graduating. We were in like the experimental group, volunteered for that. Got my tab, went to iBullock, had success there, Pathfinder Airborne. By that time, I had met my bullet commander, was going to Hawaii. So I hit him up, I was like, hey, dude, I want to go to Hawaii. What do I got to do? Got me in touch with the battalion commander, got in touch with HRC or infantry branch, and I got my post changed because I just asked questions to the right people, and I kept digging. Post changed to Hawaii, got there, so I had I'm going to rewind a little bit. All I've ever wanted upon graduating was SF. I didn't know anything about regiment. And that's what, if, they always ask a question, if you're the Ranger commander, what would you do? When they ask you in the regiment, that's what I would do. I would change the advertisement that the regiment has because not enough people know about it. People in high school, that's where you recruit from. They don't know about it. West Point, you don't know about it. I knew nothing. I don't know if anything's changed. But all I wanted was SF. I got lucky. My company commander in Hawaii when I showed up was a Ranger through and through. He was a Ranger enlisted. Ranger platoon leader was going back to 175 to be a commander, and he just kept hitting me up, regiment. When you can drop a packet? I was like, shut up, sir. I'm going SF. I'm going to do this little Ranger stuff. Battalion commander was a Ranger as well. So I had two Ranger influences on me, and I blew them off for long enough until I got to a point where I was so unsatisfied. I would just leave work. I was an XO for the company. I'd been a platoon leader. Now I was an XO, and I would just leave work every day, like asking myself what I did. I would spend 12 hours at work and just grinding away. I felt like I would just be putting out fires all day. I get in my car, stressed as heck, and I would be driving home, asking myself, what did I actually accomplish? Like, how did I grow? How did I help the unit? And I couldn't answer it. So I was like, I need to change. And that's when I dropped my Ranger packet. I was the last in my year group to do it, but it worked out. I was on time. Went to RAS, was selected in RAS, and then I went to SF. Now I dropped my Ranger packet, I want to say right about 3 and change. So 3 years after I graduated and change, to give everyone a frame of reference. And you get plenty of emails if you pay attention to know when these windows open up. Look at the recruiting websites they have and Milper messages. You can stay on top of the windows. Went to regiment, and it was the time of my life. It was incredible. It was everything you ever want the Army to be. And I just had a blast. I was a platoon leader for a year. We went through an 8.5-month training cycle, deployed with the platoon to Afghanistan for 3.5. And that was my second deployment. The first one I had was to Afghanistan as well. It was 7 days after I showed up to the regiment. So I'm leaving Hawaii, stressed as heck. What am I doing with my life? Go to RAS, PCS, show up to regiment. No shit. 7 days later, I was on a C-17 in Afghanistan. I was like, this is awesome. This is everything that I've wanted to do, finally, And I just had nothing but an absolute blast for the next 2 years in the regiment. And if anyone has that mentality of, I just want SF, not worried about regiment, I would say you're just making a mistake. Like, if you want to do this type of stuff, if this is what you want, this special operations world, that life, you're just making a huge mistake if you don't at least try. Now, the transition is what gets everyone caught up, right? So the transition to SF. I know that there's always a battle between manning. So the purpose of a Ranger junior officer is to groom him to be a company commander, because they don't need PLs. Platoons can run themselves, but the PLs are there to learn what to be a company commander is like, so they have commanders. So when they lose the commanders, they're going to get a little upset, and they're going to try to stop that from happening. And it's always this battle between SF wanting to take Ranger captains or Ranger junior officers. Rangers are like, no, we're gonna keep them to ourselves. I didn't want to go the Ranger route and continue it because I didn't want to go back to the conventional Army, CCC, battalion staff. It wasn't what I wanted. I'm not saying it's the wrong stuff. It's just not what I wanted. I got a taste of the special operations community, which is what I wanted as a kid, and I wasn't going to let it go. So I dropped my SF packet, and SF's going to pull you. They have the power, so you have to get permission from the infantry branch to go Rangers. There's no permission that's required to go SF. SF pulls you from any branch, and they have that. That's just the way the administrative operation works. Now, what people talk about is like animosity, right? So, of course, Rangers are going to talk shit about SF and vice versa. That's just natural. You get these type of people together, that's what's going to happen.
It's alpha male and alpha male.
Yeah, I was in first platoon, a BRAWO company. Dude, my first platoon guys would like be borderline fighting second platoon guys in the bars in Savannah if they ran into each other. That's just the type of community that you're in. People are gonna run their mouth. They're gonna. It's that friendly competition, and so there's always the animosity. But me, when I went to SF, I went to selection, came back. It was a little bit of a surprise when I told people I was going, but I think you make your own bet. Like the relationships you establish and who you are and the reputation you create within any organization is gonna set the conditions for how you're treated. So I went to SF. I think I had good relationships in the battalion. I didn't have any animosity. I had the battalion XO pull me aside and ask me how selection was. I was like, man, that's badass. I'm happy for you. And I had nothing but support from my platoon. And my Ranger first sergeant, he pulled me aside and we had like a 2-hour conversation on why he thought I was making the wrong decision. But there was no animosity behind it. It was him like truly caring for me, thinking that I was making the wrong decision. As a guy who's been in the regiment for 15 plus years, that's exactly what he's going to think. And I had nothing but respect for him, man. So that's how it worked out for me. I got to the regiment. I knew I was going to go SF after, but I didn't get to the regiment saying I was going to go SF after. I wasn't even thinking I was going to go SF after. My only focus when I got to the regiment was the regiment. And it was committing everything I could to the job I was at. And even when I got to Hawaii, I knew that there was something I wanted to do afterwards. But when I got there, it was total commitment. And it has to be. You have to be committed to where you're at that certain job. No one in my old unit would question my commitment to my platoon of the company. No one would ever think that I was just waiting to leave. And the same thing with regiment. And it's that mentality that creates the relationships and the reputation and that eliminates any animosity.
I think that's a good point to focus on there, especially like younger guys, cadets or, second lieutenants, first lieutenants, get into their organizations and, they think, in their eyes, they're like, I'm going to go to battalion XO and I'm going to tell my company commander, I'm going to tell them, I want to be a Ranger platoon leader and like think that that's what they're going to want to hear, but, all they're hearing is, I don't want to be here right now. I want to be there and I'm too cool for you. I think, there's just the self-awareness thing that a lot of young lieutenants, or cadets like they don't know. They think that's the right answer and they want to look cool.
They think they're better than where they're at.
Dick. Yeah.
Are we creating a new segment right now? Pro tips from your friendly AG officers?
I like this. AG veterans.
It just does, yeah. I have two questions. So one, and I may be wrong. Did you take over your platoon in Hawaii from another Army wrestler?
You're damn right I did.
Who was
Bobby
it?
Doyle, the one and only, man.
So is that platoon, would it be safe to say that they had a 4-year stint of just the most beautiful men?
So they called Bobby Doyle Captain America. That was the name that they had for him, rightfully so. We called
Very
him Captain
fitting,
America.
yeah.
So I showed up. They called me the Winter Soldier. But no, it was a blast, dude. Taking over from Bobby was great, dude. It was so cool just showing up and having Bobby there, an Army wrestler, like walking me through the ropes. And then Bobby went to 175, and I followed him on over to 175. I didn't go to his company, but I still showed up there with him to introduce me and kind of, show me the
Pretty
ropes.
cool. My second question is, so I think guys understand the process for going SF because you get the emails. It's like pretty self-explanatory. It's like, hey, if you don't do it now, you're going to miss your window. This is your timeline. This is your year group. Boom, boom, boom. It's very easy. Basically, you got to do it while you're promotable, bottom line.
Yeah.
For Regiment, what are the key milestones you got to do for these young guys, and what's the timeline?
Get out and get your damn tab. If you don't get your tab, you're not going to the regiment. No question. I didn't get your tab, don't come back without it. But then you go to your unit, and it's like 6 months into your KD time, so platoon leader time, is when you want to start sending your packets and reaching out. Now, they have a portal where you can online submit your packet, but then you're just leaving it up for any battalion to get it. So 1, 2, 3, or RSTB, or even RHQ, to look at your packet and grab it. And RSTB is always hurting for officers because no one wants to go there. So they're always scouring the portal and just snatching up officer packets, like Curtis Garner, who went there. The way to do it is you got to know someone. And there's always, I don't care what the excuse is, there's always a ranger in a battalion, at a minimum, and you find that guy, you talk to him, and you get to know him, and establish some respect with him, show him that you're worth a crap. And that's how you can start controlling what battalion you're going to. So my company commander was going to 175, and that's how I got in contact with them, and it kept you away from RSTB. Nothing against them. But yeah, so it's like 6 months into your PL time is when you want to start really reaching out and have your packet together. And then as soon as you get that OER, boom, packet complete. Yep. And then you're getting accepted to RASP, hopefully right after that.
Yeah, so that's the thing that these guys got to understand. If you sit there at Benning as a infantry officer for a year and a half, you're really starting to teeter with your timeline. So you got to make sure that you get to your unit, get right in, and if you start going on staff or something like that, you're really going to be pushing the timeline because you got to get that KD eval as a rifle PL in order to be able to go over and do regiment. So It's important that these kids know that going in, but you can't – it's a fine line between being pushy and being like, this is my goals and what I want to do, and, yeah, I don't really want to be in your organization. So it's a fine line. But if it works out, then you get to do some cool stuff. And like Alex said, I mean, anything is possible if you ask.
Just ask and be a good dude, man.
Be a good dude.
You're going to show up to your unit giving a crap about where you're at, If you're not a good dude, you're going to be the guy who's looking at the next unit, looking at the next opportunity, and not caring where you're at, So, and to put the timeline into perspective, I left Bullock on a 330-day. They were like super tight about it. So just under a year, I left Bullock, went straight to a platoon. I submitted my RASP packet like a month or two after, I want to say maybe 3 months after I swapped from platoon leader to XO. I was the last of my year group. So to put that in perspective with everyone, if you wait until the end of your platoon time, or even after, you're pushing the limit. I got lucky that my packet was still accepted. But yeah, your 50 and 25-year target is the unit you're at. Don't do that if you come up thinking you're John Wayne, and you're going straight to Delta Force. You're just going to get laughed at. No one's won't even work for you. You're just not a good dude at that point.
Be a good dude. Don't be a pansy.
Don't be a pansy.
Yeah, two good life rules.
That's it right there, man.
So we don't got a ton of time left. Give us some funny stories from your time at West Point. Your class was a pretty rowdy crew.
Oh man, I got to keep it TVMA, right?
TVMA,
yeah.
So
the audience knows that's what we agreed to before this. He's like, what kind of curses can I what can I say? And you're like, if I drop something, can we cut it out? Like, yeah, so we agreed on TVMA. No F-bombs.
All right, yeah, no F-bombs was what we agreed upon. Oh, man. So
that was a close one.
Yeah, that was a close one. My best friends from my class, my best friends in life, Matt Pennings, Charlie Costanzo, Alex Smith. It was the four of us. Alex, I mentioned, is no longer with us, unfortunately. But man, we had times. We would go down to South Padre Island. We would go down to AJ. We had fun. But I have two memories I want to talk about. One of them is I kind of already mentioned it with Matt Pennings. You know, all we would do in the wrestling was just punch. He was this burly dude from Wisconsin, and I was this meathead. He wasn't a good wrestler from Florida. And we would, no crap, just take turns just swinging each other in the head. And like, I'd be like, ow, that hurt. I'm going to hit him harder. Boom, hit him harder. And we would just take turns, dude. And then we would just push each other into the wall. That was our points for the match. Is I would shove him into the wall and then puff my arms out and walk back to the center mat. And I had just beaten him. You know, he gets so mad. And we would just beat the crap out of each other. And that's what we did. I would love to have had a video of Matt Pennings and I just hitting each other in the head and pushing each other into the wall. That was our wrestling. But then, you know, I mentioned Nate Dahl got in on that. Tyler McLeese, Tyler McLeese, we like to call him, but, you know, he was still a little bit of a scrapper. And then Sam was a scrapper too. But I kind of hit that one. I think my funny, good memory I have, I was just talking with the two about it. It's actually Tyler McLeese and Sam Imanode. It was my senior year, and we were told we had one more B squad tournament. So I was B squatter, and we were getting ready for it. It was Tyler McLeese, Sam, and I were going to go. Coach came out when practice said got canceled. And, you know, that was heartbreaking for me because I was like, my career is done. You know, it's over. No more wrestling for me. So I was pretty upset. I think Coach saw that, and I'll forever be grateful to Coach Heskett because I think he knew I was pretty upset. And he didn't know me anything, but he put together another tournament for the three of us. There was the National Collegiate Open in, I want to say Virginia. I think that's where it was. It was like a B squad national tournament. All right. And we're getting ready for like, heck yeah, tournament's back on the table. It's the three of us. Let's go. And it was like Thursday night, or no, Friday morning. Tournament was Saturday. Friday morning, we're waking up and like starting to get all our bags packed, making sure our weight's good, getting final workouts in. And I wake up and I got the tingle. You know, everyone knows the tingle right on my forehead. And I'm like,
yeah.
This is not good. I'm not losing this last opportunity to wrestle because of an outbreak. So I go into panic mode, which is, you know, for me, it was grab a towel, make it a little wet, and just scrub until it's raw skin. Once it's raw skin, you take hand sanitizer and smack it on, and it just irritates the skin so much that it looks like, you know, matte burn or a scab or something versus, you know, an outbreak. I probably made it worse in the long run.
That's some strong Ranger stuff right there.
Very strong Ranger crap, all right? So we get in the bus, and I'm like, hey, dudes, I have an outbreak, but I took care of it, you know, as I'm, like, bleeding from my forehead, you know? It's good. We're good to go. And I tell the coach, and the coach's like, all right, we're still going to go. I think it was Enoch. I think it was Coach Enoch at the time. And lo and behold, Tyler McLeese, we get to the hotel, tingle on his chin, all right? So he's getting the outbreak. I'm like, hey, man, I got the fix for you. Where's the nearest towel and handstand? Let's go. I got you. Don't worry. Wake up Saturday morning. Samson, tingle. I don't remember. I think it was like on the side of his face. Same thing. Step into my dojo, baby. So I give him all the Alex Dahl Panic tingle special. And we walk in, we're like going into the tournament, and we're like, dude, like, we might not pass the inspection. Like, we all have clear outbreaks, but we just scrubbed the skin off our head, so it's gone. And we all, I don't know how, make it past the refs, all at like the same time for the inspection, get on the scale, and we're good to go. And we're just like cheering, like, woohoo! Fast forward, 12 hours, all three of us, between the three of us, we had wrestled on every single mat of the 6 mats that they had at that tournament with a live current outbreak. I don't want to know how many people we spread it to, but if you were at that tournament, you probably came back with something extra mostly from Tyler and Sam, though. Not for me. Mine was dead at the time, but we always talk about that National Collegiate Open a lot.
That's funny.
Not something we're proud of. but we had to wrestle.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was funny, but it worked out. It was my last tournament, so it was good to go. I got to go out and wrestle once more, which was nice.
So you mentioned getting John on the show in the future. If there's anybody else you can recommend, like who do you want to hear besides him, like that you can think of, like somebody doesn't have to be your classmate or around your era, just in general. Who would you want to hear on the podcast?
Ooh, I didn't think past John. That's a good question. I mean, you've already interviewed Jimmy Raff, and that man is a walking Army wrestling. He is like, you look up Army wrestling in the dictionary, you're gonna.
I'm so mad right now. You just gave him another shout out.
He had to.
Brian told me that.
So for the listeners who don't know, Alex and I met at Rafferty's wedding, and if you also don't know, about a year ago, I was a large pudgy person that didn't really work out, like getting CrossFit. And then Alex changed my life and got me in shape, and now I owe it all to him.
Oh man, it was good to have another workout partner. As soon as I met Brian, we locked eyes, and it was workout love at first sight. It's been good. Man, another Army wrestler. Got to think. Tons of my classmates have done awesome stuff, man. But if we're thinking, man, you've already gotten Dan, you've already gotten Connor, you've already gotten. My recommendation just goes to John, dude. Maybe Curtis or Tyler. Tyler McLeese would be a good one because he was a captain. He's down at the rate.
We've gotten a couple of requests for him actually too.
Yeah, I would do him. He's like my little brother. Got him over to 175, so we were there together for a little bit. I love that man. He'd be a good man to interview. He was captain, right?
Yeah.
And down at 175 now. And loving life over there.
I met Tyler down here, but I'll leave that story for his episode.
Okay. It's probably a good
yeah.
Good time.
Cool. You got anything else, bro?
Man, I think that covers all that want to talk about. I got to shout out all the new dive homies, man. That's the family right there. Family within the family for us, and then kind of shed some light on the Ranger SF thing, man. There's no animosity. Like you'll receive what you get, or what you put out, who you are. It'll reflect on that, and it can be done. I would highly recommend it to anyone. I had the mentality of only SF. I'm not going to go to Regiment. And that was the wrong mentality. And if you're a new, younger wrestler, with that mentality, I would just urge you to reconsider, because it was the best 2 years I've had in the Army. It was awesome.
Right on.
Yeah, and then shout out. Honestly, I got to shout out to my class because we just had. There were 4 of my classmates that graduated the Q course before me: Matt Pennings, Tyler Ronzon, Ryan Billieu, and Paul Hancock. Leading the way, the charge through the Q course, and I rounded it out as number 5. We had Curtis Garner down at the Regiment, and then John Belanger in the SEALs. I don't know what is with our class, but I got to shout out to them. Those guys are all awesome, man, for doing what they're doing, and especially the guys that were here prior to me. And it was open arms when I got here, and they did nothing but help me out, kind of point me in the right directions.
Crushing it, 2014.
Yeah,
2014, man.
What's the 2014 donations back to the Army Wrestling program looking like, though?
I can't tell you that. I know I'm doing my part.
We'll have to pull some numbers.
Yeah.
Put them on the spot.
Do that on the next one.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on and telling us your cool story. Definitely lots of unique stuff that you got to do. Hey, if you're a young Army wrestler or you want to know more, hit up, Alex. And if you can't get a hold of them, get a hold of the BHAW and our social media. We'll make sure we get you guys hooked up with somebody that's somewhere along the path has done what you want to do and get those questions answered for you.
Absolutely. Plenty of us, man. Just reach out to the community. We're here. We're here to answer. The more light that we can shed, the better, man.
Heck yeah.
Well, it was great to have you on the show.
It's great being on the show, man. I had a blast.
All right.
I'll see you.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW Radio Show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, Go Army, be Navy.